Welcome to the Shadow of History channel. Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out more videos like this one. On September 11th, 2001, Ladder 118's fire truck crosses the Brooklyn Bridge toward the World Trade Center, a photograph capturing the final journey of the firefighters aboard, all of whom died shortly afterward. At a quiet train station around 1930, a young Native American mother stands with her child, a simple moment of family life captured in time, offering a rare glimpse into everyday indigenous experience in early 20th century America. In Hellersdorf, East Berlin, June 1991, a school dustbin sits filled with discarded materials the day after communism ended, reflecting a sudden and visible shift in daily life following the collapse of the political system. In the Netherlands in 1888, the graves of a Catholic woman and her Protestant husband stand separated, a reminder that religious divisions once prevented even married couples from being buried together in death. 16-year-old Sylvia Likens was found dead on a soiled mattress after being beaten, burned with cigarettes, and starved, with words carved into her stomach during prolonged torture carried out by Gertrude Banishevsky, her children, and neighborhood youths. Around 1913, members of the Blackfoot tribe stand together in Glacier National Park, a moment preserved in a photograph that records the presence and identity of indigenous people within lands deeply connected to their history. In 1960, Otto Frank returns to the hidden attic where his family once concealed themselves from the Nazis, standing alone as the only surviving member of the family that had shared that cramped refuge. Captured in a tintype photograph from the 1870s, a gentleman poses proudly beside his young daughter, preserving a quiet family moment in one of the photographic processes widely used during the 19th century. In 1907, aboard HMS Sphinx, a British blacksmith removes the heavy leg irons from a slave, documenting a rare and powerful moment when the physical restraints of bondage were finally taken away. Mary and Violet Hilton, conjoined twins born in 1908, lived a life that moved from early exhibition to vaudeville fame, later selling hot dogs in Miami in 1955, before both died during the Hong Kong flu outbreak in 1969. An autochrome photograph from the late 1910s captures a Native American man, revealing detailed tones and colors in his traditional clothing through one of the earliest color photography processes. In 1935, officials stand inside one of the enormous pipes of the Hoover Dam, a striking view that reveals the massive scale of the engineering systems built to control and move water through the structure. In 1945, a Japanese-American family returns home after internment during World War II, only to find their house vandalized with racial slurs, a painful reminder of hostility that awaited many after leaving the camps. In 1979, Robin Williams and Shelley Duvall stand together on the set of the film Popeye, a behind-the-scenes moment capturing the actors during production of the live-action adaptation of the classic comic character. A postcard from the 1930s sends cheerful greetings from Daimler-Benz in Germany, reflecting the industrial pride and promotional imagery used by one of the country's major automobile manufacturers. During a funeral service in Cuba in 1960, Che Guevara is photographed in an image that would later become one of the most widely recognized and iconic photographs in modern history. In 1972, Bruce Lee fights a young Jackie Chan during a scene in Enter the Dragon, at a time when Chan was an unknown stuntman hired as an extra before later becoming a major star himself. After 5 days trapped beneath a boulder, Aaron Ralston took a photograph roughly an hour after cutting off his own arm, showing the pool of dirty water he had been drinking to stay hydrated. One of the final photographs of Bobby Driscoll shows the former Disney child actor, famous in the 1940s and 1950s, including as the voice of Peter Pan, whose life later ended tragically at age 31. In 1904, photographer Edward S. Curtis captured a Jicarilla Indian chief dressed in ceremonial clothing, creating a formal portrait that documents traditional attire and leadership within a Native American community. In Los Angeles during the 1920s, a young man proudly displays his wide and flowing white Oxford bags, a bold fashion style that became popular among young men during the decade. In Belarus in 1944, a destroyed German Panther tank lies abandoned amid the devastation of war, its damaged hull marking the aftermath of intense fighting on the Eastern Front during World War II. During Germany's hyperinflation crisis in the 1920s, a woman burned stacks of legal paper money for heat, as the currency had become so worthless that it was cheaper to burn than wood or coal. High above the streets of New York City in 1936, window cleaners balance carefully on a skyscraper's exterior, performing dangerous work while suspended far above the bustling city below. Once a beloved roadside curiosity in New Boston, New Hampshire, Frog Rock drew visitors in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, its massive granite form resembling a crouching frog and becoming a popular gathering place for picnics and sightseeing. In the 1970s, the United States Army experimented with grenades designed to match the size and weight of baseballs, hoping American soldiers' familiarity with the sport would help them throw the weapons more accurately in combat. In Chicago in 1948, a heartbreaking sign reads, "Children for Sale," revealing how severe poverty pushed some desperate parents to sell their own children during one of the most difficult periods for struggling families. During the 1930s, this Dutch aircraft listener uses large acoustic devices to detect approaching airplanes, part of an early warning system developed before radar technology transformed air defense during the turbulent years leading into World War II. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy shares a quiet breakfast moment with his young daughter Caroline, revealing a rare and gentle glimpse of family life inside the White House during his early days in office. In 1985, astronaut Anna Fisher appears on the cover of Life magazine, symbolizing a new era of space exploration and highlighting the growing role of women within the United States space program. In 1936, a cameraman balances alongside a window washer high on the Empire State Building, capturing the dangerous work performed far above the streets of New York City during the skyscraper boom. On April 18, 1955, Albert Einstein's office sits exactly as he left it on the day of his death, preserving the quiet workspace of one of the most influential scientists of the 20th century. In California in 1917, loggers pose beside a towering tree trunk while holding a massive crosscut saw, illustrating the scale of the forests and the demanding labor required in the early 20th century logging industry. In 1933, a Dutch boy prepares for a day of skating with a pillow strapped to his backside, a simple and clever way to soften the inevitable falls on the frozen ice. In 1940, an English girl sits among the rubble of her bomb-damaged home, quietly comforting her doll as the devastation of World War II surrounds her. Around 1900, a woman photographs herself using a camera, capturing one of the earliest examples of a self-portrait taken long before the modern idea of the selfie became common. In 1984, a large dinosaur model is delivered to the Boston Museum of Science, marking the arrival of a striking exhibit designed to inspire curiosity about prehistoric life. A young girl meets a penguin for the first time, a simple but unforgettable moment as curiosity and wonder appear in the meeting between child and animal. In 1899, Nikola Tesla sits in his laboratory surrounded by electrical equipment, reflecting the environment where the pioneering inventor conducted experiments that shaped the future of electrical technology. On April 12, 1975, babies from Vietnam are strapped into airplane seats during Operation Baby Lift, as aircraft carry thousands of orphan children to the United States near the end of the Vietnam War. In 1963, inventor Hugo Gernsback demonstrates his unusual television eyeglasses, an experimental device that imagined a future where people could watch television through wearable screens. Taken in April 1945, this photograph shows thousands of wedding rings discovered by U.S. troops after the liberation of Buchenwald concentration camp, silent evidence of the lives taken during the Holocaust. In San Francisco in 1980, Donald Trump poses with Whitney Houston, Dee Dee Warwick, and Cissy Houston, capturing an unexpected meeting between a rising New York real estate figure and a young singer who would soon become a global star. In 1958, film director Alfred Hitchcock is photographed serving tea to Leo the Lion, the famous mascot of MGM, creating a playful and unusual moment from behind the scenes of Hollywood. In 1931, Albert Einstein and his wife Elsa pose at Hopi House near the El Tovar Hotel at the Grand Canyon, a staged tourist photograph reflecting early 20th century fascination with romanticized Native American imagery. In 1945, as Soviet forces approached Berlin, a woman tries to care for animals at the city zoo, showing a quiet act of compassion during the chaotic final days of World War II. In 1948, a Hawaiian fisherman wears a torch made from kukui nuts while practicing traditional night fishing, a technique used for generations to attract octopi and rockfish in shallow waters. In 1955, a nurse shows a newspaper announcing the new polio vaccine to a patient confined to a chest respirator, capturing a moment of hope during the long battle against the disease. In Leningrad in 1989, Soviet veteran Anatoly Golimbievsky, who lost both legs during World War II, acknowledges the salute of young sailors during Victory Day commemorations. In the 1920s, a young Inuit girl carries her pet husky on her back, reflecting the close and practical bond between people and dogs in Arctic daily life. In 1909, a family photograph turns unexpectedly amusing when a curious cat appears to help take the picture, creating a playful moment preserved in early photography. On Valentine's Day in 1945, a young French girl kisses an American soldier on the cheek, a small gesture of warmth during the final months of World War II in Europe. In the 1940s, a housewife removes frozen long johns from a washing line, revealing how even ordinary household chores could become challenging during cold winters. In 1925, two women and a local guide sit atop the Great Pyramid of Giza, a reminder of a time when visitors were freely allowed to climb the ancient monument. In Montana, around 1925, a Native American telephone operator named Helen works at a switchboard, quietly connecting calls across the region during the early days of long-distance communication. During the 1960s, a photograph captures a kangaroo appearing to box with a woman, reflecting both the animal's natural fighting stance and the era's fascination with unusual staged wildlife images. In 1907, a grandmother carefully patches the only pair of pants her grandson owns, illustrating how clothing was often repaired again and again rather than replaced. In 1919, Charlie Chaplin meets Helen Keller, bringing together two remarkable figures whose lives influenced entertainment, education, and advocacy across the world. In 1939, Albert Einstein poses in New York with his sister, Maya Einstein, capturing a rare family moment behind the public image of one of history's most famous scientists. In 1929, a photograph of Grand Central Terminal shows sunlight streaming through the great arched windows, illuminating the vast main concourse of New York City's iconic railway station. In May 1974, Constable Jack Shuttleworth stands waist-deep in floodwaters in Galt, Ontario, guarding a pharmacy during the devastating flood that submerged streets and businesses across the downtown area. On June 8, 1958, 19-year-old David Isom enters a segregated swimming pool in Florida, an act of protest that led officials to close the facility rather than allow racial integration. In April 1945, an emaciated 18-year-old Russian girl looks directly into the camera after the liberation of Dachau concentration camp, her gaze bearing witness to the suffering endured under Nazi imprisonment. In 1925, a police officer stops traffic so a cat carrying her kitten can safely cross the street, capturing a surprisingly tender moment in the rhythm of early city life. In February 1972, Japanese soldier Shoichi Yokoi weeps after returning home following 27 years hiding in the jungles of Guam, unaware that World War II had long since ended. In 1957, a father and son stand in tears as relatives board a ship bound for Buenos Aires, reflecting the painful farewells experienced by families leaving Spain during difficult economic times. In 1959, a smiling French girl poses happily with her cat, capturing a simple moment of childhood joy and companionship in post-war France. In 1895, two Armenian women pose with rifles before heading into battle against Ottoman forces, reflecting the courage and determination of those defending their communities during violent conflict. In 1945, Nazi war criminals laugh during a translation mistake at the Nuremberg trials, an unsettling moment within the historic courtroom proceedings that sought justice after World War II. In 1940, two sisters run to greet their father returning home from war, capturing the powerful relief and emotion of families reunited during a time of global conflict. In 1868, a Native American man stands looking toward the newly built Transcontinental Railroad, witnessing a powerful symbol of change, reshaping the lands and lives of indigenous peoples. In 2010, at a science fair in Portland, 7-year-old Kyron Horman is photographed inside his school, the final known image taken before he mysteriously disappeared from the building and was never found. In Detroit on Mother's Day in 1940, 4-year-old George Litwin walks in a peace parade carrying a sign, a small child participating in a public call for peace during a tense period before the United States entered World War II. High above the Avon Gorge in 1964, two workers carefully install lighting on Bristol's Clifton Suspension Bridge, balancing on the structure while preparing the famous landmark to shine after dark. In 1930, a police officer rides a motorcycle with his loyal dog seated beside him, an unusual patrol partnership that captures both the creativity and charm of early 20th century policing. Around 1900, a woman carefully composes a self-portrait using a large camera mounted on a tripod, documenting one of the earliest examples of photographers turning their lenses toward themselves. In 1910, British tourists pose proudly in front of the Great Sphinx of Giza, reflecting the growing fascination with travel and ancient monuments during the early 20th century. In 1926, a proud mother pedals along with her baby, riding comfortably in a specially designed stroller bicycle, an inventive blend of transportation and childcare from the early days of modern cycling. Between 1886 and the early 1900s, settlers posed for photographs on the Nebraska prairie, part of the sodbusters era when families built new lives across the American frontier. In early 1920s Chicago, drivers guide their cars through the circular auto wash bowl, a system designed to clean the undercarriage before attendants finish the washing in nearby stalls. In 1912, a Filipino-American family stands together for a formal portrait in the Philippines, capturing a quiet moment of family life preserved through early photography. In 1866, celebrated French writer Alexandre Dumas is photographed alongside actress Ada Isaacs-Menken, capturing an intriguing meeting between two notable cultural figures of the 19th century. During a 1986 visit to Xi'an, Queen Elizabeth II studies the 2,000-year-old terracotta warriors, standing before one of China's most remarkable archaeological discoveries. In 1986, actress Jennifer Connelly appears alongside the towering creature Ludo during the production of the fantasy film Labyrinth, capturing a memorable behind-the-scenes moment. In 1932, the young Princess Elizabeth stands before a small playhouse gifted to her and Princess Margaret by the people of Wales, a childhood scene from the future Queen's early years. In Washington, D.C. in 1918, police officer Leola N. King stands directing traffic, one of the earliest African-American policewomen serving during a time of major social change in the United States. In 1905, a photographer balances high above Fifth Avenue in New York City, capturing a dramatic view looking north along one of the city's busiest streets. In East London in 1901, a young boy known as the Spitalfields Nipper holds a basket while standing on a street corner, offering a glimpse into everyday working-class life in the city. During World War I, pigeons fitted with small cameras were used for aerial reconnaissance, capturing photographs from the sky to help gather valuable military intelligence. In this photograph taken by Major Clarence L. Benjamin, passengers on a train suddenly notice tanks arriving and realize they have just been liberated. During the 1930s, the cast of the popular Our Gang, Little Rascals series gathers together for a photograph, capturing the youthful stars of one of early cinema's most beloved comedies. In 1961, an 8-month-old baby squeezes a toy rabbit that changes the television channel, demonstrating an early wireless remote control technology developed only a few years earlier. In 1896 in Nordland, Norway, a Sami family stands beside their traditional Lavvu tent, reflecting the culture and lifestyle of indigenous Arctic communities. High above New York City in 1926, workers stand on the towering Woolworth building as construction and maintenance crews carried out dangerous work on one of the world's tallest buildings. This photograph shows the final image of Frederick Fleet, the Titanic lookout who first spotted the iceberg, a man who later struggled with deep survivor's guilt until his death in 1965. In 1986, the parents of teacher Krista McAuliffe watch in horror as the Space Shuttle Challenger explodes, capturing a heartbreaking moment during one of the most tragic events in space exploration. Taken in 1918, this portrait shows a Coptic Christian woman, offering a glimpse into the identity and cultural presence of Egypt's ancient Christian community. In Ireland, a father and daughter pose for a photograph beside a parked car, unaware that moments later, the red vehicle would explode after a bomb had been planted inside. In the late 19th century, Jack the Baboon works as a railway signalman in South Africa, trained to operate signals and warning systems with such reliability that he never made a mistake. In 1969, Brooklyn, a police officer goes undercover disguised as a woman, part of an unusual strategy used to catch muggers and sex offenders on city streets. During the opening ceremony of the 1980 Moscow Olympics, performers form a dramatic human torch, a carefully coordinated display combining athletic precision and symbolic imagery. On September 6, 1870, Louisa Ann Gardner Swain arrives at a polling station in Laramie, Wyoming Territory, becoming the first woman known to cast a ballot after women were granted voting rights there. In 1917 Paris, American sculptor Anna Coleman Ladd begins helping soldiers with severe facial injuries from World War I by creating carefully crafted masks to restore their appearance. In 1950s, Leicester, England, thick smoke from coal fires and factory chimneys fills the skyline, reflecting how coal-powered homes, businesses, and industry during post-war Britain. Before it was assembled in New York Harbor, the face of the Statue of Liberty was carefully crafted in France, revealing the early stages of the monument created by sculptor Frédéric Auguste de Bartholdi. In 1936, baseball legend Lou Gehrig auditions for the role of Tarzan the Ape Man, briefly exploring a career in film while at the height of his fame with the New York Yankees. In 1941, a startled reindeer stands as bombs fall during a World War II air raid over Russia, capturing a surreal moment of war seen through the eyes of an animal. In 1952, Paris, workers stand on fragile scaffolding high above the ground while restoring the famous Notre Dame Cathedral. Inside a New York City classroom in 1888, rows of students sit at wooden desks, offering a glimpse into the structure and discipline of 19th century education. In 1914, painters carefully work along the cables of the Brooklyn Bridge, suspended high above the East River while maintaining one of New York City's most famous landmarks. In the 1880s, proud parents pose beside their newborn quadruplets, a rare and remarkable family portrait from the era. In 1870, a couple sits together enjoying a traditional Italian meal, capturing a quiet and timeless moment of everyday life. In Chicago in 1929, mailman N. Sorensen stands proudly beside a towering load of Christmas parcels, preparing to deliver holiday letters and gifts across the city. In 1899, a quiet street scene unfolds in the old town of Biskra, Algeria, revealing everyday life in the North African city at the turn of the century. In 1946, Kentucky, 5 children of a coal miner sit on their porch swing after their father was injured in a mine explosion and could no longer work. During World War I, a French soldier fitted with 2 prosthetic arms patiently learns to write again, demonstrating the determination of wounded veterans rebuilding their lives. During the 1920s, young men proudly wore Oxford bags, the famously wide-legged trousers that became one of the decade's most recognizable fashion trends. In the 1940s, Japanese anti-British propaganda campaigns produced powerful images aimed at influencing opinion during the conflicts of World War II. In 1909, Tsar Nicholas II of Russia stands beside his cousin, the future King George V of Britain, 2 European monarchs whose striking resemblance reflected the close ties between royal families. Before winning Olympic gold in 1956, weightlifter Paul Anderson trained with makeshift equipment, such as a barbell fitted with wagon wheels. In 1961, Princess Grace of Monaco visits President John F. Kennedy at the White House, capturing a moment when Hollywood royalty and American political leadership briefly shared the same stage. A quiet moment of warmth appears in 1940 as a newly born lamb gently snuggles against a young boy, capturing a simple rural scene where the innocence of childhood and the calm presence of new life meet. Here stands William Hutchings at the remarkable age of 100, one of the last surviving veterans of the American Revolutionary War, a man born in the mid-18th century who lived long enough to witness the young United States grow. Born in Washington, D.C. in 1865, Emma Lillian Todd became the first woman to design an airplane, developing aircraft concepts in the early 20th century and opening new paths for women in aviation and engineering. Captured in 1840, this rare photograph shows John Quincy Adams, the 6th President of the United States, many years after leaving the White House, making him the first American president ever recorded by a camera. This unusual firefighting suit was designed to continuously drench the wearer with water, an inventive attempt to keep firefighters cool and shield them from flames, revealing early efforts to improve safety for emergency workers. In Japan in 1907, a young geisha poses beside a yukidaruma, a traditional snowman representation, offering a glimpse into cultural life where seasonal symbols and traditional dress quietly reflect everyday moments of the era. More than a century ago, a young woman carefully captured her own reflection in a mirror, creating a simple self-portrait that shows how people long before modern smartphones were already experimenting with personal photography. Before the internet and digital screens filled childhood hours, scenes like this showed children gathered at a park, where play, movement, and shared laughter defined everyday life outdoors in a simpler era. Rising into the skyline in 1930, the Empire State Building stands mid-construction while several airships drift nearby, capturing a striking moment when modern engineering and the age of airship travel briefly shared the same sky. Taken in 1885, this historic photograph shows Sitting Bull together with Buffalo Bill, two figures whose lives reflected different sides of the American frontier during a time of dramatic change across the United States. In 1992, inventor Lonnie Johnson stands behind one of his most famous creations, the Super Soaker, a powerful water toy that would become widely popular and demonstrate how engineering creativity could transform a simple idea. In 1908, Dr. Julius Neubronner developed a miniature timed camera that could be attached to a carrier pigeon, allowing the bird to capture aerial photographs of cities during flight, as shown in this image from a test. In 1917, an Irish family gathers around a modest meal of potatoes and milk, a simple dish that reflects the everyday diet of many households during a time when food resources and economic conditions shape daily life. In the region of Brittany, the closed box bed once stood as a common household feature, providing warmth and privacy inside small one-room homes before changing fashions and manufacturing costs gradually led to its disappearance. In Washington, D.C., in 1920, two children stand beside a decorated Christmas tree, capturing a quiet holiday moment that reflects how families a century ago celebrated the season with simple traditions and shared joy. In 1860, photographer James Wallace Black captured the first aerial photograph in the United States from a hot air balloon about 2,000 feet above Boston, naming the image Boston as the eagle and the wild goose see it. During the late 1940s reconstruction of the White House, the historic building's interior was completely gutted and rebuilt due to severe structural deterioration, while workers carefully preserved the familiar exterior known around the world. In 1969, engineers partially drained Niagara Falls to remove large boulders from the base of the falls, revealing the exposed riverbed and unexpectedly uncovering the bodies of 2 people who had previously gone missing. Taken in 1839 by Robert Cornelius behind his family's lamp shop, this image is widely considered the first photographic selfie, created after he removed the lens cap and sat motionless for several minutes. Around 1950 in North Korea, rows of women carefully pack filterless cigarettes inside a factory, revealing a moment of industrial labor where steady hands and repetitive work quietly supported a growing tobacco industry. Inside Copenhagen's Illum department store in 1904, women examined cosmetics and jewelry at busy counters, reflecting a growing urban shopping culture where elegant goods and modern retail spaces began shaping everyday consumer life. Around 1915 in England, women stand beside a Southwestern Railways train performing maintenance work, illustrating how women stepped into important railway service roles during a period when wartime demands reshaped traditional labor. In Cairo in 1945, a group of women sit together smoking hookahs, sharing a relaxed social moment that reveals everyday leisure and conversation within the vibrant cultural life of the Egyptian capital. In Birkenhead, England in 1918, smiling women workers from a flour mill pause and pose proudly for the camera, reflecting the spirit and determination of laborers contributing to wartime industry during the final year of World War I. During the legendary Woodstock Festival in 1969, an enormous crowd sits peacefully across open fields, a powerful image of how thousands gathered together for music, culture, and shared experience during a defining moment of the era. Inside a Woolworths supermarket in Sydney in 1960, shelves are filled with goods packaged in cardboard, glass, tin, wax paper, and foil, revealing a time when plastic packaging was still largely absent from everyday shopping. In 1862, in the town of Troncoso, Chile, workers connected to the construction of the Southern Railway are arrested at a local bar, capturing a small but striking moment during the expansion of railway infrastructure. In St. Louis, Missouri, in 1928, workers carefully install a massive Greek Revival column on the Civil Courts building, demonstrating the scale of construction and craftsmanship involved in shaping monumental civic architecture. In Aarhus, Denmark, in the late 1880s, workers at Schmalfeld's Tobakskompagni gathered together, representing the many laborers whose daily efforts powered the growing tobacco industry of the 19th century. During the 1962 World Cup final, a photograph unexpectedly captured an object resembling a modern flip phone among spectators, sparking later curiosity and debate about what viewers believed they saw. Seen from the harbor in 1976, the World Trade Center towers rise clearly above New York City's skyline, standing prominently before later development would gradually fill the surrounding landscape. High above New York City in 1979, a window washer works carefully along the towering glass of the World Trade Center, highlighting the quiet precision required to maintain one of the tallest buildings of its time. Around 1976, the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center dominate the skyline of New York City, symbolizing the scale of modern architecture and the rapid growth of the city during the late 20th century. In 1979, the World Trade Center stands tall in New York, its towering presence reflecting the bold engineering and ambition that reshaped the skyline of Lower Manhattan. During World War I, soldiers disguised an observation post as a fake tree, a clever method that allowed them to secretly watch enemy positions while blending almost perfectly into the battlefield landscape. In a powerful moment of reflection, World War II paratroopers sit aboard the same aircraft that carried them into Normandy in 1944, facing photographs of their younger selves from that historic mission. In Ypres, heavy damage from World War II surrounds an unusual tourist excursion where visitors move through the shattered remains of a once thriving city scarred deeply by years of conflict. In 1937, photographer Margaret Bourke-White captured an image titled "World's Highest Standard of Living," presenting a striking view that reflected the economic contrasts present in the United States during the Great Depression. Inside a hospital in 1863, wounded soldiers from the American Civil War lie in recovery, revealing the heavy human cost carried by those injured during one of the most devastating conflicts in United States history. In 1918, the wreckage of the famous Red Baron's aircraft, Baron von Richthofen's Fokker, lies broken on the ground, marking the end of the legendary German fighter pilot of the First World War. In 1985, Xi Jinping appears during a visit to San Francisco, a glimpse of the future Chinese leader decades before he would rise to international prominence. During the 1920s, a young delivery boy stands ready with his goods, representing the many children who worked small jobs delivering packages and supplies through busy city streets. In 1998, a young Jeremy Clarkson appears early in his career, long before becoming widely known as a television presenter associated with automotive journalism and broadcasting. In 1994, a young Kanye West is seen wearing an anti-Nazi t-shirt, capturing a moment from the early life of the future musician before his later rise to global fame. In 1939, a young Princess Elizabeth works as a mechanic during the Second World War, showing how the future queen contributed to wartime service while Britain faced the challenges of global conflict. At the turn of the 20th century during the Second Boer War in southern Africa, a young Winston Churchill gained recognition both as a soldier and as a war correspondent reporting from the conflict. In 1909, Winston Churchill watches German army maneuvers alongside Kaiser Wilhelm, observing military preparations during a tense period in Europe before the outbreak of the First World War. In 1967, in Central Park, New York City, young protesters gathered to oppose the Vietnam War, reflecting the powerful student and youth movements that shaped political debate across the United States. In 1911 at Ellis Island, a young attendant from Madras stands among new arrivals, representing the many individuals who passed through the immigration station seeking new lives in America. During the 1920s in Oklahoma, a young couple stands beside a roadside speed limit sign, offering a glimpse of everyday life during the early decades of widespread automobile travel. Photographed in Newcastle, England in 1969 by Elliot Erwitt, a young girl stands holding a bright red ball, capturing a simple and timeless moment of childhood. In 1929, a young boy stands proudly dressed in formal clothing, presenting a portrait that reflects the careful attention families once gave to appearance and photographic keepsakes. In Norway during the 1890s, a group of young women stand together in traditional dress, providing a glimpse into the clothing and social life of the late 19th century. In Ireland in 1910, a young woman plays a harp before a large crowd, continuing a musical tradition deeply connected to Irish cultural identity and public performance. In Italy in 1947, young men carry long rods of pasta for drying, revealing the traditional method used in pasta production where fresh strands were carefully hung to dry. In November 1989 in Berlin, young people sit atop the Berlin Wall after the opening of the East German border, celebrating a historic moment that symbolized the approaching end of division in Germany. In Stockholm, Sweden, in 1895, young soldiers from the Svea Lifeguards stand together in uniform, representing one of the historic regiments of the Swedish Army. In Moscow in 1947, young visitors patiently wait their turn to see Lenin's tomb in Red Square, reflecting the continuing importance of the revolutionary leader in Soviet public life. In July 1936, near Eutaw, Alabama, a young woman plows a field as photographed by Dorothea Lange, showing the demanding agricultural labor carried out during the difficult years of the Great Depression. In Madrid in 1936, young women of a Republican militia pose with their weapons, representing the role many women took in the struggle during the Spanish Civil War. Inside a video game arcade in Hollywood on August 11, 1982, young people gather around glowing machines, capturing the early excitement of arcade gaming during its rise in popular culture. On 14th Street in New York City, in 1983, youngsters carry large boomboxes through the street, reflecting the growing influence of portable music and urban youth culture. Around 1941, Yugoslav partisans pose with their weapons, including a Thompson submachine gun and a Lewis gun, representing the armed resistance that fought against occupation during the Second World War.